So, hello everyone. Welcome to another Tea with the Druid. We're so glad to have you here. This is a recording, and I do hope you enjoy the conversation that we're going to have, Galahad and I, and the meditation. So, I'd like to introduce you to, let me mention, for those of you who are new to Tea with the Druid is brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. My name is Philip Carr-Gomm, and my guest has the splendid name of Galahad Clark. Galahad, welcome. Thank you for coming on to Tea with the Druid.
Thank you.
And tell me, I've got to ask, what a fantastic name. How come you're named Galahad?
Well, my mother was Austrian,
Yeah.
so as we were just talking about Hundertwasser, and the initial name on my birth certificate was Wolfgang, and my father couldn't quite live with that.
Yes.
My father called Lancelot.
Oh, really? Oh, well.
The day after I was born, looked for a name book and saw Galahad, son of Lancelot, and there it was. Yeah.
There you were, and how interesting. And your dad, of course, you come from a family because your surname is Clark. And many of you will know about Clark Shoes if you're in the States. I don't know if people know about them there, but Clark Shoes is a famous brand and company that was originally a Quaker business, well known for its social enterprise. And in fact, in the order, twice a year we have a big event, a summer gathering and a winter gathering, which we are now holding in the Strode Theatre in Street. And Street is the village just outside Glastonbury, famous because I guess one of the major sort of industries there was the shoe business.
That's right, yeah. My forefathers were sheep farmers in Somerset.
Right.
And so the first shoe they ever made was called the Brown Peter, which was a sheepskin slipper.
Right.
And they made that in 1825 and then went on to build a pretty decent and beautiful business off the back of it.
Off the back of it. And now the reason why we're here is because I met Galahad in this extraordinary place called Broughton Sanctuary, where there was this wonderful event for Beltane, and we had stories and talks, and went on pilgrimages with the British Pilgrimage Trust, which was fantastic. And Galahad unveiled for us and gave us each a set of shoes that are a special kind of shoe that perhaps we can get to talk about later, but a shoe which grounds you to the earth, helps you connect to the earth. And so you make shoes, but your shoes are very different, aren't they? Different to the family shoes, the standard shoe that Clark's makes.
Well, amazingly, and this was, I have a little shoe business called Vivo Barefoot, which sort of does what it says on the tin. Vivo Barefoot means live barefoot.
Right.
And so, the definition of a hypocrite is the cobbler that goes around with no shoes on.
Yes.
And we're sitting here barefoot today.
We're both barefoot, actually. Did you just find when you were growing up that you just really enjoyed being barefoot?
No, funnily enough, I was already doing a shoe project that was a sustainable shoe business, but it was a childhood friend of mine that came to me with the idea, and he'd found an old pair of Nikes, cut the sole off it,
yes,
and stitched on what was a tennis racket cover, and said this is the way shoes should be made.
Okay.
And he, through Alexander technique and postural alignment therapy,
yes,
had understood that shoes were sort of misaligning us,
right,
and sort of said we need to get back to making barefoot shoes, which is actually the way humans have made shoes for probably 100,000 years.
Yes, if you think of moccasins and so on, they're not. The sole is very basic, in fact.
One of the first tools Homo sapiens would have ever made would have been a shoe, because we don't have hooves or pads.
Yes.
Our sensitive feet need a bit of protection from, be it the hot baked savannas of Africa or the camel thorns. And so when we sort of discovered the running hunting in the Kalahari, probably around 100,000 years ago, one of the first things we did was put animal skins under our feet in the form of sandals. Probably before we were shoemakers as a people, before we were even farmers.
What an interesting concept. Yes. Although there are people who don't wear shoes, aren't they? Do they like I don't know, sort of in the Amazon or into the Aborigines?
Humans made shoes wherever they went, but obviously the less, and I still believe this, the less you can get away with wearing shoes, the better.
The better.
So just only use them when you need a bit of protection, either from the heat or the cold, or a bit of puncture protection if you're trying to cross a mountain or whatever.
So was your family very upset by you rejecting the conventional shoe?
Not really, honestly. And funnily enough, even after we started Vivo Barefoot, I went back into actually someone showed me something from the Clark's archives. And it was an advertising campaign run by Clark's in the 1870s.
Yes.
And it was called Hygienic Boots and Shoes.
Yes.
And if you read it and looked at it, it almost read exactly like a Vivo Barefoot advertising campaign.
Oh, right.
And it was a juxtaposition of a Victorian mum in her kind of corset and whalebone skirt, rather rigidly standing, with two very well-behaved kids sort of standing upright alongside her.
Yes.
And then juxtaposed with a modern woman for the day and age, and flowing robes and children running around and playing. And the advert literally read, "Hygienic boots and shoes are designed to allow your feet to develop naturally. We have a responsibility to allow our children's feet to develop naturally, made of natural shapes, etc., etc."
So you weren't going against the grain that much,
and actually, like we just said, this is the way humans have made shoes. It's a recent aberration that we've made non-barefoot shoes.
This is interesting, and I think the reason why I think it's interesting to talk about this in the context of Tea with a Druid is that a lot of reasons why people are interested in Druidry, and is because people have this yearning to reconnect with nature.
Yeah.
They want to lead a more natural life, and that's what Druidry stands for in a way. And for me, going barefoot, one of the things I loved about living in New Zealand, I lived in New Zealand for about 2 years, on and off. And one of the things I love about living in New Zealand is that a barefoot it's perfectly acceptable for you to hop in your car, drive it barefoot to and go into Wellington or a big city and walk into a bank or a supermarket, and they're not going to. Nobody will bat an eyelid because other people will be doing it too.
Sorry to interrupt you, but there's actually a famous study of barefoot in New Zealand, and like you say, because it's so culturally acceptable, and the children are all running races barefoot at school, and they're even playing rugby barefoot at school, and like you say, so. As a population, a relatively westernized population, they're relatively much more barefoot than Western societies. And the foot health in New Zealand, correspondingly, through this famous study, has shown is tremendously superior to shod populations of the civilized world.
Isn't that extraordinary? And yes, and there's something about what I've noticed about wearing. It's like wearing sort of dark suit and tie, which or smart dark shoes. So as little as possible. Maybe sort of once a year, I'm invited to some formal thing. Well, I mean less and less now, probably because I'm not getting the invitations. But dressing up very smartly for something, and I noticed the corresponding sort of psychological feeling. I don't know whether aggressivity is the thing, but I remember once my son and I probably going to a funeral actually, and catching sight of ourselves in the mirror in a restaurant, both looking like a couple of sort of mafia people, with black suits and these sharp shoes. They defend you. There's almost this aggressive quality that they can evoke in you, I think.
Pointy-heeled shoes literally derive from status, because the reason humans started making pointy-heeled shoes was to put them in stirrups for horse riding.
Oh, okay.
And so
you were a knight, or
and it was the definition of having status in society to then have pointy-heeled shoes.
So those strange shoes that, I mean, you see these men's shoes where they look like they're sort of cramping and crimping the toes into a thing. Or, of course, women, if you walk behind somebody wearing high heels, it can often be, you think, why are you doing this? Because you see them wobbling, desperately trying to sort of maintain their posture.
Yeah, there's arguably something ceremonial about women's high heels and peacocking around and things that has happened in cultural dress all over the world, but just the everyday use of pointy-heeled shoes is something that came along with horse riding and the status of having a horse and therefore walking around in those shoes, and one thing led to another, and that became
fashionable and a status thing. Yes. And have you found that people like this idea, that it works? Are people interested in your...
Oh, people often write to us and say, what is the magic in these shoes? And of course, there is no magic. It's literally, the magic is you. You're just allowing your feet to
connect to the earth.
And in many ways, the modern shoe industry that is, if you go to any shoe shop today, you'll see bigger, spongier,
thicker,
pointier
soles.
shows than ever. And it is a literal example of
disconnecting from the earth.
From the earth. And so people just... and your whole body works differently when your feet are in full use, because every part of your body goes through your feet.
Okay. And now, before we started this, we said how, we didn't want to, this isn't a commercial. We didn't want to focus on this. But I just want to sort of bring out, because I'm really interested in this. And I suppose what interests me in terms of all this work in Druidry, but also in psychology and therapy and well-being and life in general, is how small adjustments can make a big difference. There's a sort of analogy, when you're working with somebody in therapy or when you're working in a spiritual sort of context, the pressure of society is towards the big story. The dramatic Hollywood major change to change your life so you can transform and be better and help the world and all the rest of it. But I think the reality is that it's often in the small changes. And the sort of analogy, I think, is how if you were setting off in a boat from Britain to go to America, just a few degrees difference, you end up in South America as opposed to North America. So small things can make a difference. And so this is the shoe that you introduced us to, and it's called the pilgrim shoe, isn't it? And you say that there's something about the sole of this shoe that is allowing your body to electromagnetically connect with the earth. Is this science or is it woo-woo? Basically, how do you know?
Well, the conductivity is real, and we test that. You can
put sort of electric currents through it,
and there's silver threads that connect the special compound in the sole that is effectively an enhanced carbon compound.
Yes, that
allows for full electrical conductivity, and so
there's a compound in the rubber that you've used.
Compound in the rubber, and then conductive thread.
So
and we live in an age of chronic pain, autoimmune disease is going through the roof. And, I would say a lot of that is because of the shoe industry and this literal disconnection from our bodies, from the earth.
Yes.
And the science of grounding is growing. There's more and more scientific papers and how when our bodies are full of electricity, and by insulating ourselves from the earth, the electricity gets stuck in our bodies. So it's linked to excess inflammation in the body, which is the basis of a lot of chronic illness. And so that de-stressing of the body and the electrical charges to keep the body in electrical harmony is there's a tremendous amount of science to show that, and it's and that's in many ways the cherry on the cake in a way. Some people will say it's the fundamentals, but just your feet have hundreds of thousands of nerve endings. They've got 28 bones. They've got hundreds of muscles and tendons. And if you imagine, the normal shoe basically restricts the use of all three of those body functions.
Yes.
Let alone the grounding. So if you're wearing a big pair of pointy shoes, you're skeletal system, and your big toe in particular is squashed up against the others. So you're overcompensating then up the body. If you don't use the muscles in your feet, they get weak and atrophy. And if you don't, your big part of your brain is designed to get a lot of information from the hundreds of thousands of nerve endings in your feet.
That's interesting, isn't it? There's a thing called the homunculus in the brain,
exactly.
Which is, if you haven't, look it up online. It's rather interesting that when they map the sensitivity of your body, and you map it onto the cortex, you come up with a picture of a person with big lips, big hands, a great big thumb, slightly pronounced genitals, and feet. And the reason it looks like that is because more data is flowing in from those places. And thinking about that thing of the foot scrunching it up, to use an analogy that men might recognise, it's the difference between wearing boxer shorts or what are they called, Y fronts or briefs. And I remember when John Lennon couldn't have a child, the doctor said, just wear briefs, wear boxer shorts, don't wear briefs, because you're not being scrunched up so much. So this all makes a lot of sense. And this agenda of sort of freedom of letting the body move in the way it wants to, rather than restricting it, and this very interesting notion around electricity. What I notice in the Tea with the Druid meditations, when I often start with a fairly lengthy sort of induction where you're connecting with the earth and you're dropping into the earth and sort of feeling the earth and all the rest of it. And I know that, and of course, if you do that literally outside rather than sitting in front of your computer, it's even better. But there's something so healthy, it feels, and stabilizing about going through that, even if it's just in the imagination.
Yeah, everybody knows it and feels it when you kick your shoes off when you arrive at the beach.
Yeah,
and it's transformative for everybody. The studies show that the parts of your brain that get information from your feet by walking around in sort of big padded shoes in a concrete world.
Yes,
it literally starts to atrophy because you're designed.
You're being insulated.
You're being insulated from and
disconnected. Essentially, I mean, that's the big problem with the modern world, isn't it? Around disconnection, we're sort of being unplugged. We have the illusion that we're getting plugged in by using the internet and all the rest of it, but actually we're being disconnected. We're disconnected from the climate by using air conditioning and thermostats
and our poor feet, like you just said, are, and homunculus man, like you say, with these giant hands and giant feet.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in modern medicine, they rather discard the feet and deprioritize them against the hands, where the feet are essentially the same as the hands, and in fact, in many ways, we're using them even more than the hands.
Yes.
Meeting medical doctors and things, they're taught to rehab hands through exercise and things, but kind of whenever there's a problem with the foot or the toes, they just kind of lop it off or do a bit of, they never prescribe rehab and regaining health and use of the feet.
Yeah. How interesting.
So the problem sort of starts at Western medical understanding, whereas of course cultures all over the world have understood health through feet intimately. Like thousands of years ago, Ayurvedic practice prescribes barefoot walking on the earth to regain health. Obviously, all sorts of Asian cultures understand health through feet.
The reflexologists, of course, absolutely understand that. Yes.
So it's a sort of Western disconnection problem and Western medical problem, as it were, that we have deprioritized feet from our health agenda. Yeah.
This is so interesting, Galahad. I think we could do a whole sort of hours discussion and diving into this question of feet. That's really interesting. Let's and I think to sort of bring it back to Druidry, I think again that this is something that would resonate with viewers around this, is that I think all of this will resonate with them because they think, yes, my desire is to be free, to liberate, kick off my shoes at a sort of spiritual level as well as a sort of emotional level and a mental level, and a social level, but also at a physical level. and reconnect to the earth again, and get closer to the earth, and allow my sort of love for the earth, really, and sense of being a child of nature to come to the fore.
And going back to grounding and Druidry to some extent, the leather, of course, itself, when sweated into, and the foot sweats about 12 ounces of a day.
Right, is that how much is 12 ounces?
It's like sort of nearly a pint of
really crikey.
Sweats
really?
the feet.
Yeah. Okay.
They sweat a lot. We use them a lot. There are lots of muscles in there, and
yeah.
so when leather and like we were saying, the first peoples as they left Africa and crossed the mountains would have made their moccasins out of bisons and elk, and the Sami people in the Arctic made their moccasins out of reindeer skins, and buffaloes in the subcontinent, and you mentioned people living in the jungles, but they made shoes out of weaving
flat sort of plants together.
Weaving plants together. I was just in Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, and they were sort of saying there's still an indigenous group of people there that make their moccasins out of salmon skins, which also some of the Canadians still do.
Yeah.
And so all of shoemaking for, let's say 99,500 years would have been grounded, because as soon as you sweat into leather, it's electrically conductive.
Oh, really? How interesting.
So it's very recent that humans have not been electrically connected to the earth.
Yes.
And actually just in many ways just getting back to that type of shoemaking. And we're working with a lot of these groups around the world, and it would be wonderful if you could come to this. In March 2025, we're having a cobbleration in South Africa, where we're bringing indigenous cobblers from all over the world, and there's a few little pockets of them still making shoes the way they would have made them. People from Colombia, the Hopi, the Cree up in Canada, some groups from India, of course, the San Bushmen, that still make the eland skin sandals that were probably the original shoes we ever made, to try and keep this shoemaking alive. And actually making yourself a very simple pair of leather moccasins or leather sandals is a lovely way just to sort of re-engage with that craft, and literally, by definition, then your feet will be free and reconnected.
How lovely. Gosh, that sounds exciting. And it makes me want to look up the old stories because they're wonderful fairy tales, aren't there, that talk about cobblers and shoemakers. They're rather like weavers. There's this tremendous tradition of stories and songs about weavers and the kind of magic of weaving, and likewise with. So I'm going to go and.
Well, I can't remember the words now, but you remember Guy sang that very funny song about when we were in the Cobblers Museum.
Yes. Up
in Grantham, but I can't remember. But it was an old song about cobblers.
About cobblers.
Yeah.
Well,
quite raunchy.
Yes, a topic of research. So let's in Tea with the Druid. We always have a meditation. Tea with the Druid is designed to create this sort of oasis and of calm. Every Monday evening. So is there a meditation you'd like to lead us in?
Sure, yeah, I would love to. And to the spirit of movement and connection, my meditation is a reasonably physical one. It's a breath meditation, but in the spirit of in this case just moving the energy around the body.
Great.
It comes from a Taoist practice, but I just meditate by breathing into different areas of the body and then trying to get a circular flow of energy moving around the body. So we'll just do a breath into each area,
right,
and try to sort of literally physically breathe into each area as I take us through it.
Okay.
And then we'll try and do one just where you feel the energy going all around the body.
Great.
Yeah?
Fantastic.
Okay, this is a surprise to Philip. We hadn't spoken about this before. So we start in the belly. So let's just do a couple of deep belly breaths. And then we go down to just around the pubic area. Try and breathe into that area, the lower belly pubic bone. And then down to the dantian point, which is right at the base of the spine. then to the spleen. And then the point directly behind the belly. So try and breathe into the back. And then up behind the heart, still in the back, try and breathe into the back. And then your most pronounced part of the vertebrae, right at the top of the vertebrae, there's a point there. You just try and breathe into that at the top of the back. And then what's called the jade pillow, which is the soft part just at the base of your spine. And then the crown of your head. Try to really breathe and suck up the energy through the crown, through the pineal gland. And come to the third eye. And then your palate, with the tongue just touching the top of your mouth, and breathe into that point. Then the base of the throat. And then a full chest breath. And the sarcophagus and the diaphragm. And then we're back to the belly. So let's just try two breaths where you put the whole thing together and try to create a circular motion, and all those points have come alive now. And you can try and feel the energy moving between all those points and back to the belly. And on the in-breath you might go down and up the back of the spine to the crown, and then the out-breath you come down the front of the body. And then we can just resettle back to the belly. A couple of deep belly breaths just to ground the energy back again. And of course you should be able to feel a total body awakening, and most importantly of course your feet fully grounded, and feel the energy pouring from your feet up through your crown. And one of the things we like to say is, have your feet on the ground and your head in the stars.
Well, thank you very much.
Did you feel that?
That's absolutely lovely. A detail the jade pillow. Is the jade pillow just where a neck pillow might go, the soft bit?
Exactly there, yeah.
Yes. Because when you said at the base of the spine, I think.
Oh, sorry, I meant the base of the skull.
The base of the skull.
Sorry, my
so
apologies.
that's okay.
Through you.
Well, no, it just it was just interesting. But that's just, if you're doing it again, you might like to, yeah. But no, but that was absolutely lovely.
I've never guided anyone in that before.
Oh, you haven't?
That was a first experience. So thank you for that.
No, a pleasure. And what it made me think of as well is one of the foundational exercises. We have 2 foundational exercises when you begin the Druid training. One of them is creating a sacred grove, which is, if you're lucky and you can actually create one in your garden, that's wonderful, and plant trees and so on. But also you create it in the inner world, the world of the imagination. And it's a place of sanctuary, and it's a place where you can go to connect with the natural world and to connect with your deep self. And then sort of from there go off on adventures and go deeper and higher and lower and all the rest of it. And then the other exercise we do, and then you can do them in conjunction, which makes them very powerful, is where we work with the energy body. And we start, it made me realize that when you were doing that meditation, we start with the soles of the feet and we go upwards. And a lot of people are used to doing body scans, going top down.
Right.
But we start with the soles of the feet. We go the other way. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, thank you, Galahad.
Thank you. I've just, as you know, got on my first introductory Druid packs. So I look forward to the education.
Oh well. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy the experience of the Druid Hearth as well, because that's a big project we've been working on for the last 2 years. So that not only do you have the training, but also this wonderful community of people all over the world. Hundreds of groups and all sorts of special interest groups and so on. That's fantastic.
And if anyone makes a beautiful pair of sandals or a pair of moccasins even, then I would love to see them. Please send them in, and it'd be great to see. I'm sure people are out there.
Well, there are. I remembered, as you were talking, I remember an order member who is a shoemaker. And I'll try and find, if you happen to be watching this, do contact me, because I speak to lots of people and have emails from lots of people. But I'll try and put you two in touch. So we'll put your contact details in the blurb. So thank you everybody for watching Tea with the Druid, and look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, many blessings. Have a lovely week. Lots of love. Bye.